It has to be said that royals have been for sale for many, many years. Let's not forget, really, we had Peter Phillips recently doing the milk advert for Japan. Nothing wrong in that. He's not associated or indeed on the royal rota. But naturally, if he wasn't associated with the British monarchy, would he have got such a big payout deal? You understand. Likewise, the Duchess of York, Sarah Ferguson, continues to get very lucrative TV work, and let's not forget also book deals based on the fact that she's a duchess. But this is nothing new. I mean, absolutely nothing new. And I'm a big fan of Sarah, don't get me wrong, but even she knows that that's the association. If you have an association, it's so lucrative. Now, when you look back in history, there's been so many different people that could have made a lot of money, but seemingly it appears that certain royals are not as bright as they first appear. Let me explain. Morning, lovely to see you in the very heart of Parliament today. We'll have a quick wave. I hope you're all keeping well, whatever you're doing. I know I often say this, but history, throws up some strange stories, when you think about it, particularly when you mix royals and celebrities, and you see that more and more and more. We've now just recently seen, of course, the rocker Rod Stewart at 80 becoming a King's ambassador alongside the former international footballer David Beckham and sometime actress and Marks and Spencer's model Sienna Miller. You get the picture. It all helps your career and it helps raise the profile. But cast your mind back to this. In 1962, over at Shepperton Studios in the very heart of England, they were kick-starting a brand new road picture starring Bob Hope, Bing Crosby, and a small cameo from the original star, Dorothy Lamour. As I told you in a previous video, the gorgeous Dorothy Lamour was not wanted in the movie by her former co-star Bing Crosby because he felt at 48, coming up 49, she was too old to play the girl in the sarong. And studio bosses, relinquished upon his insistence and gave it to a beautiful young British actress at the time, Dame Joan Collins. And Joan herself said it was a rather tricky movie to make because she was a big fan of the British-born comedian Bob Hope. Bing Crosby, not so keen, let me tell you. That's where Joan spills the stories, right? Now, here's where it gets really interesting because the movie itself, as I say, had a 10-year gap between the previous one. And it was all wisecracking, joking fun, the type of thing. Everybody had gone to see it and they were big bucks at the box office during the Paramount studio years. This time around, it was a totally different company. And the idea really was to try and update it for the 60s audiences. Now, they were just a few months shy of absolutely having this wonderful opportunity. They were offered, according to a well-placed source, an opportunity for the Beatles to pop up and make a small cameo. You see, this movie had some great cameos, including the British actor Robert Morley, Peter Sellers, amongst many others. But there was one person that they had an idea about, and they figured that this would work out incredibly well. And when you think about it again, it would have been a big payday for this particular ex-royal. But for whatever reason, they decided against it. You see, Bob Hope, who played a character called Chester, was supposed to have this terrible dream where suddenly he'd been knocked out, he got amnesia, couldn't remember who he was, but suddenly was now being crowned the King of England. A throwback to Bob's British roots, right? And this was where he got woken up by Bing Crosby, and the idea was he was going to be crowned by none other than, that's right, Edward of Edward and Wallis Simpson fame, right? Now, here's where it gets really interesting because originally Edward, liked the idea and there were big bucks on the table from the movie producers. But although it was like a 40-50 second cameo, no words, just literally him visually in screen placing a crown on Bob Hope's head. Well, he wouldn't do it without Wallis. And they said, but it's not really about Wallis. Well, couldn't you put her in another scene? Couldn't she be in a ballroom? Whatever. No, there wasn't really a scene for her. And naturally, they didn't want that to come out and they wanted it to be a surprise for people at the movie cinemas. So once again, you see how history repeats itself? He insisted, no Wallis, no him. And so the whole idea of this mirage dream sequence of Bob Hope becoming the King of England, crowned by, for at least a short while, a former King of England, literally was wiped away. And it literally became, for Wallis and David, Edward, the road to nowhere, even though they were desperate for money at the time. Amazing what you find in vaults, isn't it? Neil Sean in the very heart of London.